Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette Kuntze. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette and I'm your host. Today I have a special guest here, and her name is Jan Jorgensen. She is a visionary messenger to decode the essential steps for individuals to complete their unique mission for the divine plan. An RN, PhD, CMP, author, recording artist, TV and radio host, and interviewee. She is credentialed by Avatar, Omnium, the Music for Healing and Transition program, and has taught her voice release and be the light techniques worldwide. Welcome to my show.
Thank you, Swanette, beautiful Swanette. And I'm just so touched and honored to be here with you and your viewers and listeners today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I already heard a little bit about you, what you're doing. And when I read through your story, there is like a Jan before and a Jan after a certain point. And it would be so interesting to understand a little bit about your own journey, where you come from, and become who you are now and what you're doing. So can you give us a little bit of an overview about your own story?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. And I'll tell you why I love telling my story, because it's so similar to many of the other lightworkers' story. There is a universal rule that when you are born, incarnation into a body on earth, you must take the little pill of forgetting who you are and where you are from. So it's quite shocking to be born to biological parents who are programmed to this social fabric and behaviors and milieu, and yet you're an awake being. And so I remember looking around saying, this doesn't feel very safe. It was noisy. It was chaotic. I could tell from the get-go, it was so misaligned. And then as I grew, let's say maybe 4 or 5, and at the time I didn't realize it, but many of us are empaths, and I would watch my father speaking, and of course I was merging with him. I didn't realize I had the ability for my consciousness to just travel over, and I'm like, he's not saying what he really feels. And in fact, he's saying something false to manipulate, to control, and to pretend that he's someone else, some nice guy. And it wasn't just my dad. It was just, I had enough experience with this masculine attempting to make some semblance of his life the best he could from his own woundedness. So I actually grew up not trusting other people, and we had 10 people in our family, 10, 2 parents, 8 brothers and sisters. So I was the 6th, and my mom was just, pretty much a saint. Her name was Mary, and she was such a good Catholic girl. She just kept having babies as the Catholic religion said she should. So I don't think I was really planned. I wasn't planned. I know I wasn't planned. And I don't think I was really wanted, because when I was about 19 and had a deep talk with her, she actually said, I was afraid to tell your father I was pregnant again. I said, Mom, do you realize you just told me I wasn't planned and I wasn't adored and cared for in a way of a welcome, loved child? All of these became my puzzle pieces as I grew up to understand the marginalization of most humans on color, on caste, on society standards. I think it was the perfect family to drop into. There were 5 sisters, and we would sit in a circle and we would talk. And I never got my chance to go in because I was one of the youngest. So I felt female competition. I felt invisible. I felt like, who am I? I didn't learn till I was an adult that with my Black Irish hair that I would wear winter colors, and they dressed me in copper and brown. So in every way, I wasn't individualized. I was a group. And without this individual attention, I felt that I just kind of separated myself out and became a watcher person. And that felt safe. So all through my childhood, I would say that I probably dissociated a lot. And there again, it was a beautiful puzzle piece because my father, he was a fireman, he was a drinker, everybody loved him, and he loved music. And he would put on the musicals, he would put on opera, he had a natural tenor. When he was really drunk, he could hit all the UC Berling high notes. So I hibernated in the music. I remember I would hold the album cover of Rhapsody in Blue, and I would become the woman in that gorgeous da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And there would be 10 people and noise and food smells all crammed into a pretty tiny house. 5 girls at once slept in one bedroom. Later, we built an upstairs, the 3 boys in the other bedroom. But I would go into the music. And actually that became something that later I understood. Music is the only thing that goes unchanged from the 3rd dimension to heaven. So later during my spiritual awakening, that was the door for me. Music was the door. And around 12, I decided, you know, I love musicals, Judy Garland. I would sing along. I would stand in front of the mirror with a hairbrush pretending I was Judy Garland. But my dad would say, you'll end up in the gutter and you'll become an addictive person. You can never support yourself. What he was insinuating is you're from a family that doesn't have a lot of income. So I decided to become a nurse. And then when I became a nurse, I didn't realize it, but if I changed somebody's dressing, my leg hurt as much as theirs. And one of my nursing colleagues said, Jan, that's not normal. I said, you mean you don't know what everybody's thinking and feeling what they're thinking? She said, no, are you kidding? And so that was the first hint that maybe I was wired differently. And I was maybe 19 or so, and I began studying Seth Speaks. Seth Speaks and Edgar Casey. And then I asked my mom, I said, hey, Mom, good Catholic girl. Every night she would put her glasses on and have this light. Everybody would go to bed. And she had a stack of books this tall. I'm surprised they didn't have brown covers on them for what I'm going to tell you. I said, Mom, what were all those books you were reading when I was growing up? She said, oh, Edgar Casey and Seth Speaks. I said, what? So she was a closet metaphysical. And turns out I come to know now, she and my grandmother carry the lineage of the divine feminine. They had no idea what it was, but their prayers moved mountains. And so I had this wonderful lineage and influence of a mother who was praying and holding a very high vibrational field, and then kind of a fun, I don't want to say narcissistic, but, you know, a playful dad with those tendencies. So I really could see both. I could see both. So 19, 20, 21, then came along Paramahansa Yogananda, and he said, listen for the universal tone, close your ears. And then I felt like I could be in a physical body and go to heaven. And I began to just study and learn and work with it. And then the main change came. I married a wonderful man, safe, Catholic, orthodontist. I did everything by the book because honestly, I wasn't sure what was real. And I thought, well, I'm going to go this safe path, and many of us empaths have. And so I became president of the Dental Wives. I put on events. I became the hostess with the mostest and raised 2 children. But we always said we're only going to have 2 children because we wanted to be perfect. We had the son, we had the daughter, private schools, Ferrari, villa, everything, until our 3rd child snuck in, even though I was on birth control, a little hole in the diaphragm, did it, and everything's meant to be. And the minute she was born, she was uncontrollable, very wild. She almost died at birth. And for 12 years, I didn't know it. But when she almost died at birth, she almost drowned to death. She had gastric reflux. An entity came within her. So for 12 years, this entity tortured me and took me to the edge of sanity, the twilight zone. She would be most horrific with me. And for instance, she would, the middle of the night, I'd go check in her room. She's not there, but the windows are flown open and she's tied all of her sheets together and she's on the 2nd floor. And I think she's going to be dead down, on the bottom floor. No, she crawled down there and then she went and hid in my car. Every day she would crawl the top of a 3-story tree and be like this, and we'd have to call the fire department. And of course, I learned to navigate mental health services, school services, autism services. She had every diagnosis in the book. Now, the reason I'm saying this, she was my greatest gift. She was my wake-up call. She was 12 years old. She would go in and out of psychiatric units, and the nurses said one time, Mrs. Sircone, that was my name, Mrs. Dr. Sircone, when we have our 8-hour shift with your daughter, we are so exhausted to go home after watching her. She tore apart the padded room even. And I said, where does that leave me? 24/7. Well, often we had an aide. So this was the moment, and I'm so glad it happened. I was exhausted, and they taught us how to hold her so she wouldn't be a harm to herself or others, and she would go into fits and spit and stab. And I was just completely out of sorts. I said, may the light of Christ shine in this child now. That was what a priestess says, okay? Her eyes turned black, she started frothing in the mouth, and she said, you're a good for nothing. You don't even earn money. Your husband support. It was things that a very dark being would say. And I said, Frank, come in here. That was my orthodontic husband. He said, our daughter's the exorcist or needs an exorcism. It was so clear. And I said to myself, I called in the light and the dark showed itself.
Yeah.
Holy cow. And that's when I realized that there was something in me that needed to hone this skill, needed to find people that could do it. And then I said, Frank, I think we're not on the same path. I really don't want to go to one more wine tasting. And he was a handsome, wonderful, great guy, father. And I said, maybe there's some other woman who wants to walk this path. So he now tells his grown children, your mom was smart. And then I dove into sound, consciousness, intention, calling in the light. How powerful could it get? And that began my path, and I joined a priestess program. I've led priestess programs. I've had many women ordained with my skills, always working in circles, though, bringing in specialists for things that I was learning. So that was the turning point, and I would say late 40s, early 50s. So, I'd done a lot of study and I had learned a lot by then. I was continually taking courses because of the singing, and I couldn't quite sing in tune. Again, that was a gift. I studied anthroposophical pure tone singing and worked my voice for so many years that when I ended up being a sound healer, I could actually listen for, ask the patient's higher self, which note do they need, at what level of intensity, and how to bring it into their body. So in my 50s, everything came together, and I continued the path with studies, working with hospice patients at the bedside. And that was another huge veil lifting, to use music from this dimension and to escort someone across the bridge. I'll take a breath.
Good. So what I see is that on the one hand, you have already these gifts inside of you, that you are an empath, that you can really feel and understand what people have inside of themselves, but also you trained a lot to get more knowledge and more experiences in other topics. And like, yeah, having also these challenges on the one hand with your father, but also really this situation with your daughter that I think is so special. Perhaps you want to tell us a little bit more how you helped her to overcome this, because yes, having 12 years of kind of up and downs and being together with a girl that is your daughter, but yeah, you also have to handle this kind of situations. What have you done also perhaps with help of others that made the change for her, and also brought her to another life, of course. Yeah.
I'm happy to tell that story. But I also want to say that most parents do not have the skills to navigate differences. They barely have the skills, especially with busy, both working parents. And so I didn't know really how to hold the calm, the consciousness and intentionality that needed to happen with someone that would bounce me in and out of this reality. So when I realized what was going on with Kelly, and I absolutely never gave up, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes she'd be perfectly normal. In fact, she'd come up and say, "Mom, I'm sorry I ruined your life." And then she would go into these progressive stages of dissonance and then almost psychosis, almost homicidal psychosis. So I said, something is causing this. This is not organic. And I began to think neurotransmitters, possibly diet. And it wasn't until she went into, actually, once, parents make contracts. They told me she decided to come in and assist and support my awakening. So after that happened, I was carrying a pile of newspapers out, and a piece of paper went like this and it floated down. And I was on so many mailing lists. It says, "Does your child have multiple diagnoses, out of control, and the doctors don't know? Maybe it's a metabolic disorder." Okay. Simultaneously, she had just been at 6 months at Edgewood in San Francisco. And I went to pick her up one day and her breath smelled like ammonia. Now, I'm a nurse. That's a liver situation of metabolic disorder. So this institute is called the Pfeiffer Institute, Pheiffer, in Napier, Illinois. And I memorized the link, and I'll tell you why. I took her there, and they took hair, urine, the test. They said, "Mrs. Zircon, we think you can help. We think we can help you with your daughter. She has this, it's a rare metabolic disorder, methionate processing disorder, and we're going to change her diet and give her vitamins. This is something that many prisoners have. No rage control and no empath." The kids that start hurting animals when they're young or poking their sister's eye. So it took about 6 months for her to go on the vitamins because she'd finished her job, her contract of my awakening. Now she could get back in her life. So we were able to put her into a Waldorf school then. And Waldorf accommodated her artistic little, kind of bigger than life side. And she began working with a costumer, making hats and hammering little headpieces. And by the time she was a senior, she was making 7-layer Victorian dresses and doing all of the hemming and handwork. Kelly is an award-winning costume designer in Hollywood. She is a sought-after seamstress by Universal Studios. She has made booby things for Madonna, leather pants for Justin Bieber, and she's the most solid, insightful, delightful. She has an edge to her personality still, but she won't touch chocolate, gluten, milk. She has a dietary list that she follows because it's not worth it. It's not worth it for her to fall off. So that's the story of Kelly. I wrote a book one time, Kelly's Song, but I realized that part of her life is a closed door for her. It's almost like they dropped in a new person in our family at age 13. So it's just fine. We breathe with it. And I'm just so glad because so many people said, well, why don't you just put her in a unit forever? I said, no. And that no that I said is the no that light workers must use their voice. My intuition guided me every single step. And now I say Kelly was my greatest gift. We lived in this huge mansion, balls, parties, wine tasting, and yet we had this bedroom that had red stop, windows couldn't open, and her whole room was full of those bouncy balls. But it helped me articulate to the world the way that we treat children that are differently. We changed bus systems. I walked every morning. My best friend was the head attorney of a school district. I knew exactly what to ask for, how to advocate, and I became a teacher for other parents of differently abled children, which I think has been a great skill for me, working with women to find their voice and to say, no, this isn't working anymore. We need new leadership, and I'm finding my voice. So it was all good, as hard as it was, and didn't make sense at the time of, oh, wow, really, this orthodontic life, the wine country, and this crazy child. And then I left it all for my spiritual path, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, but this is now kind of 15 years later. If you look back and see, what you already said, these are all the pieces of the puzzle, and now you can see the whole picture. And it was good for your own awakening and to bring out all the gifts and now helping people with all what you already know and experience by yourself. So, but I think this is often that we are, while we are on our path, it doesn't seem logical, or our decisions sometimes are strange, and we think, why did I have this decision? But after a while, you understand, okay, this was necessary for a reason, and then it's kind of bringing us more and more to our soul path and understanding why are we here. So,
and the good part is I never planned a spiritual awakening. Things happened to me, and then I would seek the information to figure it out. Okay, so I got the divorce, and by then we had switched to this gorgeous little farmhouse that we redecorated. So there I am by myself. And I remember laying in bed, and Rudolf Steiner, anthroposophical, he had this exercise. If you're on your path, lay in bed, and you cannot move a muscle or get up unless you are informed by who you really are and what you're meant to do in this earth. I didn't know. I've been an orthodontist's wife. I'd take some spiritual things. I had no idea what my path was. So I laid there for days practically, get up, go to the bathroom, or take a shower. But I laid there, and finally, through the blinds, this misty image came in of a long-haired, dark-haired woman. And actually, I just went silver this year. This is brand new. This is 6 months. I'm still getting used to that. But this beautiful white dress, dark-haired woman wafted through, and then she came in a little circle, and she was marrying Christ. And I said, what is this? What's this Catholic stuff? But I learned later that that is a kind of an archetype dream of when you're choosing to own and marry your own Christic consciousness. So I began studying what that was about. And then I met an amazing man who was my partner for 4 years. And he is he's an alchemist, music of the spheres. And he was a teacher at the Sound and Consciousness Institute in San Francisco. It's now Globe Recording. So I started taking classes there about how to guide my voice in singing, about music of the spheres, about sacred geometry. And as my partner, we began teaching it together. And then I realized, oh my God, I really do know how to do this, almost like from another lifetime. So I became a teacher. And everything that I had struggled with, being an empath, I put into a class, kind of like hygiene for sound healers, how to protect yourself, how to protect yourself from dark energies, how to sense and feel, how to protect your client, how to listen for the higher guidance for the sounds. In other words, so everybody is safe with the highest, best outcomes. So I taught there about 4 years, and then I began opening my own centers. The first one was Song and Spirit. And again, it was crazy, the synchronicities of, I was going off to Egypt. David and I, the head of the globe, we had complete enlightening, awakening experiences. So then I had to study that. And after we had that experience, we toned at I think the Sobek temple, and the whole thing lit up. And Spirit said, tell David to build it. Twice I was told that. So I came home, David didn't build it. So I hired high-level sound engineers, Eric Larson, who actually engineered the cymatics machine that makes the voice profile visible. I hired him. I gave him $50,000 I didn't have. And we did sound tubes, and we just wanted to build an environment that people could have an awakening, enlightening experience. And he says, now, Jan, I pretty much, I work with science, even though Divine Mother showed him how to engineer that machine. And I said, well, I hear that there is a sound healing chamber underneath Mount Shasta in this city called Telos. And I said, a lot of people believe in it. I've meditated. I do believe it's there. Let's ask and intend. I take people into what I call a light trance state where they can see a movie or access what it is they need or want to happen. I said, Eric, let's ask and intend that if there is a healing temple in Telos, that you will be shown and you will be given that information. Okay, this is the scientist. He calls me 3 days later. I can't quite believe this, but they flew me over. And it's a geometric structure. It's other planets like a plexiglass. There's a water pool there. There are 12 beings singing. I said, singing simultaneously into a piece of paper with the name of the human that is ill or needing realignment. And that represents their consciousness, their energy field, remote healing. And these 12 singers are singing into the energies, and the water is the carrier. He said, now I know what to do. So over the years, teaching and refining this, I called it the Be the Light. Well, it's a 3-step process of harnessing your own consciousness, your own intention for physical healing, heal something else. Of course, there are many rules when you're working with other people because, of course, it affects everything. There's impeccable integrity of non-interference. And I work with weather patterns. And this is a good one. My grandson was coming to Olympia, and I hadn't used my Supergirl skills for a while. And it was very, very smoky. We've had so many fires, and that's another story about why and where and the whole and who's causing that. But the smoke was coming in so thick, and my 2-year-old grandson was going to fly from New York. So I usually work with a partner, and we get our magic wands out, and we asked and intended that the air quality would clear over our city, Olympia, for the 7 days he was here. So my partner, he thinks I'm cute, and that I do these things. And I said, okay, do me a favor. Would you follow the air quality map for us this next week? And every day, he said, is the wildest thing. Just over Olympia has gone from red to orange. The next day, he said, it's gone to yellow. And then just over our area, he said, Jan, it's completely green over Olympia and red beyond that. And I said, my friend and I did that through ask and intend. I said, remember the time we were up in your property and a fellow said, oh, we need it to snow. It's a terrible drought. And I said, well, why don't we ask and intend for it to snow tonight? And he says, Jan, it hasn't rained. It's the middle of winter. It hasn't rained in months. Are you kidding? Ha, ha, ha. The next morning, he brings my coffee in and says, very sheepishly, have you looked outside? Snow, just like snow. His Buddha is covered with snow. So I think Spirit allows us in the right place and the right timing to use these skills to help others understand that they have this skill. We never, those of us that know how to move time and space, we never do it, of course, to show off or ego. It is, everything I do is to teach people that they can do what I do, and probably better, because I'm not a real focused person. I'm very right brain.
Yes, so how can people understand what kind of gift they have inside, or how also to find their path? Like normally people are so busy in their life, and they have their jobs and their family, and they can't even connect to themselves. So what can they do to understand, okay, this is my path, this is my gift, I want to bring this out?
Well, people are very entrenched with what they thought they should do, what others think they should do, and it's a big glue, and it becomes a consciousness bubble that occasionally their head sticks out. And they're like, oh my God, look at this. But if I go towards this, then the bubble's going to fall apart. So you really have to accept that if you're on your spiritual path, you're going to have your feet in both worlds. And you must ground yourself in both worlds. In other words, after because I was learning in my spiritual awakening, I mean, there was a while where I couldn't even write checks or do my checkbook because I was way too expanded. And I was having so many spiritual experiences that I had to come back in, first to be a credible teacher and to really work with people in a grounded way, to show up for the appointment, those sorts of things. So if people are living what they feel, I call it my gray life versus my colorful life. In the gray life, trust those little drop-in intuitive moments and appreciate them. Understand that you are like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, and that you are in a gray world, and that you will go up in that house and you will shake and shake and shake, and you will come down in a more expanded state. But you can't stay in the expanded state. That heavenly, what do you call it? Da, 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 da. Never, it's not Never Neverland, with that little yellow brick road and everything. She went there so she could go back home and know that she could go home at any time in her mind in the third dimension. She brought the vibration of heaven. This is what I did it with hospice patients. I went up, I embodied heaven, I brought it back, and I sang it over the person so they felt safe enough, left the fear to go out of their physical body and to go back home. Now, what I do is I work with people. I bring the vibration of heaven through guiding their consciousness and breathe it in and hold heaven and still open their eyes and function as a third dimensional person. Therefore, in training with their family, with truth and light and calm and alignment, with their work, and there's physics, everything lower vibration. Everyone around you, their thoughts of their lower vibration will move up and come to the higher vibration. So don't be afraid if you're having these intuitive experiences and you're starting to awaken. It's not the time to throw in the towel and go be with a guru in India. It's to know you are here as a visitor. You took the pill of forgetting, and now you are remembering that you are an ambassador to breathe in and hold humongous, magnificent circuitries of light and shed it out with bright eyes, with loving hands, with singing voices through the lens of intuition and letting go. And of course, left brain, gray environments, they don't like letting go. It's scary. And in fact, some people will say, my sister one time said, you know, we're not sure what you're doing, but you're having much more fun than the rest of us. And don't get so far ahead of us that we can't see you. So let every little step of awakening be an adventure, a surprise. And don't tuck it back in as, oh, I'm different, this is scary. And I'll tell you, there's a perfect example. You know, I have a lot of sisters, and one sister, she's very well-to-do, and she's a spiritual person, but she doesn't really want to know the facts or the tools, and to stick her head out too far. And I said, I think you're afraid that if you believe one fundamental universal truth, that it might dissolve a lot of your materialistic life. And she said, yes, that's it. And I said, that's not true at all. I feel that I can manifest and be in charge and manage everything because I learned the simple tools. Every morning, this is the key. This is the answer to your question. Meditate. You have to clear all that from your mind. I actually do a free meditation every Wednesday morning. It's called Be the Light. I have people come from around the world, and we still our mind. The brain waves must go, alpha, beta, theta, down to practically asleep before you can begin ascending up into the higher levels of frequency. And pretty soon, once you learn to still your mind for 21 seconds and stay calm, then you can pop your head into the first levels of Christed consciousness, which is about 734 hertz, okay? Your head pops through, you start talking to spiritual beings that don't have bodies. It's quite wonderful, and I feel like I did it slow enough, and I would have the experience, and then I would find an experienced person to put it in perspective so I didn't think I was going crazy. Which leads me to the next big step I made. After the awakening, I said, there's people like me, women, who feel isolated in their breakthrough experiences. And I said, we need to get, well, women, because I work mainly with women finding their voices, men as well. In fact, it's genderless. But we need to find a way to get people into Zoom or groups where they can discuss, if we all took the pill of forgetting and we're waking up at age 50, we need someone to talk to that we know we're not going crazy. Oh, in my dream, I went to this planet and they told me I'm an Arcturian. You know, should I go? Should I take drugs? One woman called me and said her husband was going to put her on medications. And she just opened the phone book and there I was. And that's another thing on your spiritual path. If you ask, the help will appear. But I developed, it's a template, and I've worked with women worldwide, especially in countries where it's not safe to have a spiritual uttering at all. So it's called SOAR, SOAR, capital letters, sounding our authentic resonance. And for many years in Marin County, California, kind of a hotbed of divine feminine and new age and just awakening and evolution is happening there. We would have luncheons, and I have this format of, I created and I set the sacred space. And by setting the Be the Light sacred space, simple meditation, we all drop in what I call our higher self. The energy of trust, truth, communication, co-creation, like a communion. It was almost like church, but it wasn't spiritual. It was just, we used the vibrational tools. And then I would have a woman who is good at something come in and be in the middle of that circle and share her mastery. And I thought, wait a minute. Then they all started sharing email lists, and I'd see them popping up as friends on social media, making best friends based on resonance. And I said, I saw it as a template for the new power grid based on energy, trust, and resonance. And it's growing. Every day I open up, and again, I just initiated my part of it with SOAR, but I have gone and spoken and helped groups form a simple group of sharing. What is up with you? And the things, one of my friends just had Metatron at her house for a month. Like, oh my goodness, how'd you do that? We help each other go higher, and then we do a meditation at the end. So if people want to come, and I'm sure you can share the link, I talk a lot about SOAR and how to get into your own group. And I'll tell you why. When I first got the divorce, and I said, oh my goodness, what am I? I know it's big and I was supposed to do something. And my friend said, oh, there's this guy, Peter. He's a psychic. He's very good. So I went and saw Peter, and I was sitting there, and he starts laughing. He says, you really have no idea who you are, where you're from, or what you're going to do, which I'm happy to say I've taken care of all those boxes now. And I said, you're right. And he said, well, in the future, you're going to be on stages teaching people to run energy. And, you know, I said, what like plug in toasters? All I could think of was it was such a joke. And he said, as you are speaking of it, there'll be a certain number of people in the audience who think you're absolutely nuts. But later, you will have given them a puzzle piece, and they will come and say, thank you for telling me about that experience, because I just had some angels fly me over the moon last night and tell me who I am. And he said, then you will learn, and the main thing is to teach them to run their own energy. So then I'd meet women and say, oh, Jan, you were my high priestess in another lifetime. So I have needed these circles to fill in my blanks, my role. And I'm a cheerleader. And that's why I have these different skill sets. And you did mention that this is a very advanced audience. So I'm going to feel safe enough to say this, that in the inner circles, people I work with sometimes know where they're from. They say, I am an emissary and ambassador from the Pleiadian realm. I am here, I'm a golden solar angel. So being a cheerleader, I would need to understand the teams. I would need to speak their language to make a resonant connection. So as I began working with releasing fear from the female voice through different systems where I could track fear, the portical, consciousness, health, voice bio, I became a specialist of voices. And we were sitting in a circle one day, and I said, oh, I wonder if I could say the language of where this person's from. So I said, everybody shut your eyes. And I imagined, and I said, I'm going to do an experiment here using vowels and consonants, because Rudolf Steiner said, when we speak, the entire cosmos is sounded. The vowels are planetary voices, vibrational essences. O is Jupiter, for instance. The zodiac is the consonants. So when you speak, you are launching new ideas and activating people's energy fields. And so, just like people in Norway speak, Jan Jorgensen and different people, I said, I wonder if I could speak, like E.T. phone home. So I said, shut your eyes. And I imagined, for instance, Mary sitting there, and I would say, and I felt, because I could merge, their whole body lit up. It was like wrapping together the satellite system. And later I said, okay, who is first? Mary raises her hand. That was me. She said, I actually saw my parents. And usually there might be one or two women in that circle who are like shaking, like, oh my God, this is too much for me. But Peter told me, even if you feel you're taking people to the edge, whatever spirit tells you to say in that moment, say it, because that soul will be glad you did. Do you know how hard that is to say something? Just in 1 week, a few weeks ago, I gave 2 wonderful talks, and I went just a little bit beyond the edge, and the facilitators gave disclaimers. Well, now everybody might not believe what Jan says. Some of you I know are thinking she's a kook, but Spirit told me, say and go that extra inch, because Jan, it's not about you. It's not a popularity contest. You must say the truth. Their soul is longing for that truth, but their logical mind is gonna kick you off. This is the thing. If you show people that you're managing the skills, number one, they want you to do things for them and become codependent. I never allow that. I never try to get people into multiple sessions. And then sometimes they'll put you on a pedestal. Oh, I wish I could do that. And then they test you. They test you till you say something a little beyond their belief, where they can kick out that pedestal because they're not ready to accept that truth. I also acknowledge there are many truths, and what is true for you may not be true for me, but I am a projector in the human design system, and I know I lose my golden ticket if I say something that is any way not perfectly, like a prism, a perfectly expressed fractalization of resonances through human language that will assist and support their activation to remember what they came to do. And not all people want to remember. They're not ready. They feel ashamed. They feel guilt. They're not going fast enough. So sometimes people might get caught, again, in a group where I'm saying things that kind of baffle them. And then I'll just energetically pull back. And at that point, I make a joke. And then all the tension in the group and that one person who's freaked out, okay, now I can recoup.
Yeah, so do you speak then different kind of light languages?
That's it. That's light language. That's absolutely it. And again, I only do it on a need to do basis, on a private session. If a person is advanced and ready to connect, I will do light language. And also, if I'm working with someone, for instance, and I have to say, as I'm speaking to you, Spirit drops in pictures. So that's why sometimes I'll veer off a little bit. I was working with a young man who had a lot of trauma in his Russian lineage and needed that healed. So to do light language, it may not happen in one session with the person who's there to do light language unless they've cleared a lot of their trauma, confusion. But this gentleman had a lot of sadness from his Russian grandparents. And so I might start singing a Russian lullaby. I don't know Russian. I don't know any Russian songs, But that resonance of the grandmother reaching through the veils to make this gentleman who never felt held and rocked and loved, healed that masculine lineage of not feeling held and loved. So he wasn't in a place of his conscious and spiritual path for me to do light language. But I will do light language in groups where it feels warranted. Yeah, I don't plan to do it. I have this, it's funny, I've told people before that when you're a projector, you're pretty much here just to help people project a better movie for themselves. So I might give a title to something or have someone come for a session, but the words come down, like in a bingo machine, and they come down in light speed. And there might be 5 first words I can say. So angel time. And if I don't speak too fast, the right word out of those 5 choices falls down into my voice. So that, again, the consonants and vowels and resonance and the care of the higher source that is assisting me to enlighten, heal, lift up this person, whatever the issue is. So it's like little ping pong balls coming down. It's kind of funny. And a lot of times I'm given words that I have never pronounced and I don't know the pronunciation. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I totally can understand that. So I'm a projector in human design as well. And
you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. And as I'm also clairvoyant and precognitive, I'm kind of channeling also this information. Only it is not very long ago that I started speaking light language, so my own language, being a starseed. Yes. But it is interesting for me to understand how you go in resonance with, for example, with me. Yeah, if you would start speaking my language, how would you resonate with me that you can feel or get the sounds into your...
Yes. Well, I don't think about it. I just do it. Now, first of all, I want to say that my first sense was, well, there's a resonance between you and I. And I had an initial sense, and again, I don't cognize these things, but I sense that you're angelic. And your blue shiny eyes and your blonde hair, where I'm from, that's pretty much the given. And so, but again, my monkey mind can sometimes, and maybe you're from the Pleiades and I just decided because you have blue eyes. So therefore, I can't, people say, well, where am I from? I say, I can't tell you, but can help you figure it out. I have different meditation steps to go out and merge with different types of beings. And I got to stop right here. Caroline Corey is the ultimate teacher, and I studied with her for 6 years in France. And I'm so happy because I know where I'm from. I know I'm wearing 4 different hats as a cheerleader, different roles that I'm playing, skill sets, and I help people discover their skill sets. And one of the most important skill sets is this light language. And right now I'm merging with your electromagnetic field. I'm looking at your geometric structure. And of course it's moving. In vitro chiamahiriari coruniariato. And that was pretty much your family saying, we honor you, Swanette, the being that you are, holding this place on earth as a vibrational exuding being, not just what you are doing, but giving people like me the megaphone. So there's cross-pollination and that we're creating a larger container. And when I did that, I opened my eyes and you look so magnificent right now. How did that feel?
for me, in my body, it is like I'm getting heat waves.
Yeah, movement.
Yeah.
Movement. It's a connection. And I'm hearing, we take our spiritual energy and right here, medulla oblongata, right below the skull. And I'm getting a picture that you want a little bit more sound right there, right now. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that pretty much went up and up through your pineal gland, up and out. So it's just taking you to the next step of vibrational attunement up through, where you receive your energy up into your pineal gland.
Yeah, I felt it on my crown chakra.
Yeah.
I felt it here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wow, this is fun. We get to bring out all the tools here.
Yeah, I think what you already said, like, no, we are connecting and we are creating something that is bigger, because we both have the idea to create this new paradigm and to empower the people to understand about their gifts and about their path. So we have kind of the same path for ourselves, using different tools, of course, but it's totally in alignment.
Now, since you said that, it gave me a thought that people are saying, but Jan, things are much worse. Well, the things that are not in divine alignment have to be dissolved. Anything based on greed or fear. That's why if we get in the source circles, we meet like-minded people. And guess what? We start vibrating a circle of consciousness. And then here's your circle, the beings in consciousness. And those bubbles together form a new social system that is totally different. If it's not based on greed, it's sustainable resourcing. It's communication systems, travel systems. This is the divine plan. And this is being informed into you and I and all the other visitors here from a higher place. That right now, the realization of it and the vibrational nature of it is not quite readily visible to most of us. We're taking it step by step. We're taking each other by the hand, doing activities like this. And let's just say there was a gentleman, and he was the most studied dead experience in the entire world. Stanford studied him, died for, I think, Mellon Thomas. He died for 2 hours. And I got to have dinner with him because of the Sound and Consciousness Institute. All these people got to come through and speak, and I taught there. We went out to dinner. I said, I have one question for you. What's the future like? And he said, whatever you focus on is your future. So don't focus on the composting, misaligned systems. They're so broken, they're not fixable. What feels good is what you focus on. Doing your passion, writing your book. You asked me earlier, what do people do when they're in the gray zone? Find the one thing, meditate, of course. Find the thing that gives you joy. For instance, if you're a graphic artist or an architect by day and, you feel like you're working for the boss, at nighttime, if you've always wanted to create a children's book on mindfulness, do that. Do your dream. When I was little and stood in front of the mirror, wanted to be Judy Garland, the time I didn't realize I really didn't want to be a professional singer. I had stage anxiety. I wanted to sing over dying people and take them to heaven. But follow your dream every step, and it morphs. It's not like children are the old days. What are you going to be, a policeman, a nurse, and you get married, then you die? No. Follow the next step, the puzzle pieces. If you're listening to this broadcast, you're not a regular person. You're here to be the answer. You're here to be the bridge. Now, speaking of the bridge, I was shown that my job as a cheerleader is to get everyone who chose to be a bridge activated and remembering what they promised to do. We each signed up for, let's say it was 3,300 light workers that I signed up to really help leaders. I'm the teacher of leaders. It's like triage, and every woman that I assist has a certain number of people that she contracted with the Creator to get on board, because we won't always be living in the heavier third dimension. The two will be like oil and water eventually. So even though we might not be doing sustainable farms here in this dimension with the supply chain, disease, fiery, tsunami, drought, this is all being just created. And this is the part that we must take as a group step by step to ensure that it happens. Do you see? This, humans will be allowed to stay on Earth that they almost killed if they join in like-minded, high vibration circles and create a new way of living that's benevolent. And the Earth and the universal forces will allow for humans in a high vibrational social form to continue to reside on this planet. How it's all going to play out, I'm not sure. I know focus on the positive, getting in a support group so that these ideations don't seem crazy, but that's how all social systems formed, by someone saying the truth, a resonance. And I mean, that's how Hitler did it. That's how Gandhi did it. It's rallying around a resonance. That's how we create realities. So people get to choose, what reality would you like to reside in?
What I see at the moment is, of course, we are still in COVID times here, that people are so deep in their frequency, like they are in fear about being infected, what will happen with their own life, with relatives, what will happen with their job. And every time they are listening to the same news that is always pushing this fear. So
yes.
Yeah, and then of course we both, I think you as well as me, we are in a different level of energy and frequency. So I never had this feeling of fear because of the situation, because I'm creating my life, and I know what I want to create here in Madeira. So I'm really busy doing this kind of stuff, and I don't have time for thinking about whatever virus can be here or not, whatever. So
yes. I'm rarely sick because a high vibrational field rebuffs it. However, I'm a public health nurse. Yeah. And so one of my jobs was understanding infectious diseases and prevention. So I counsel people to go in and to work with the belief fields that they hold. And if they feel that their lifestyle or the people that they are with, I mean, this is the great litmus test. First of all, where did the virus come from? I personally believe that it was being created in that lab as a potential bioweapon, and it leaked out. That's what I think. And then some of the darker agenda people think, well, now this is the method that we can have control and monitoring and watching. However, then there's the medical community that are using traditional methods of creating vaccines and trying to save lives, okay? So you look at all of it, but it comes down to one thing. Each person connects with their higher self, higher knowing, and gets that connection with source, and they make a decision what to do. Free of fear. Free of fear. And actually, I think we're almost forming two bubbles based on this one aspect alone. But I don't want to make judgment about it. I'm only responsible for myself and my choices. It's a very complex and perfect for our time. Choosing fear, choosing high vibration.
what I also see is that, of course, we can reach out to the people, and what you're already doing, teaching them how to bring up their own vibration, how to create their own vision, to understand what they really want to bring out into the world. And of course, I do this with my podcast as well, as we speak about this topic, and our listeners can understand, okay, figure out what is my vibration, and am I more often in fear, or what can I do with meditation and movement or whatever helps to bring it up. And
yes,
if you are in a higher vibration, then you are able to create. If you're in a lower vibration, you can't. So you're blocked.
Absolutely. When I call it being in the zone of a high vibration, like if you're a painter, I'm a painter, I'm an intentional creativity painting teacher. And I actually chose that because it allows people to express themselves without the new age words. But I take people into the zone with simple language. Now we're going to feel into the canvas. We're going to feel this. And that zone it's not thinking, and it is a higher vibration. And it sometimes scares people too. I have work to do. I'm to be earning money and the whole thing. I think that if you want to conceptualize the whole thing, we're going from logic, control over, way too focused, masculinized, the blade and the sword, chalice and the blade and the chalice. We're needing to swing the pendulum back more towards the feminine, more towards inclusivity, fairness, we rather than me. And so that's just natural. That's just natural that we need more arts and more social time together. That's why the source circles, and fear naturally drops when you're sharing food and you're laughing. Actually, I'll say a little bit more about the SOAR idea. So Swanette, you have your circle and you stand in the middle of it. And then you have people like me stand in your circles. And then sometime maybe I'll interview you and put you on my SOAR page. If we all know each other in this way, then it's natural. I have a guest house in Olympia. I love to invite people I really like to come and stay. And we have food together, sing songs, and I bring my community to meet that person. This is an entirely new way of travel, of interaction, of sharing skills and food and music. And I think this feminine template could be a big step towards oneness. I think it's very exciting to me. It's almost like a whole different grid of even economic ramifications of staying with other sisters around the world. For many years, when I first started this, I pictured, and I think there will be, a big permanent divine feminine headquarters in France is where I picture it'll be. And I've been told that it'll be donated and different teachers will rotate through, and then we'll have lots of young women mentors learning about everything. And this sets a standard for interaction and education in a different way out of the bureaucratic governmental systems. My master's degree is in political science, and out of just authoritative systems. So we're following spirit and we're sharing, and it's in integrity. So I see that seems to be one of my assignments right now. And I want to make an app so that someone would say, oh, I have a really great gift I want to share. And then they see that you do podcasts. And then you would write down the type of person that you like to interview, who it reaches. That way we can identify each other accurately. And also, if you're willing to host a group, to bring in your community. A few years ago, a woman named Nina invited me to Puerto Rico. And she had a group of women there that she worked with. And she brought me in and I stood in the middle and we did sound and voice release. And she invited me to lead a ritual for the opening of a women's study program at a Puerto Rican university, the first of its kind. So that demonstrates the SOAR method. She had met me in San Francisco. She had her circle. I came and stood in that circle. And then she has come and worked. We've done, many events together. So that's it. And we're happy. We're happy when we're with each other doing this work. And somehow the money comes. When I was there, I did healings. I did private healings. I did a sound journey where people paid to come. We did things at the expo. They put me on stage at their expo and I sang. I mean, the whole thing was just heavenly.
Yeah, this is so wonderful. So I'm here in Madeira, a little island in the Atlantic Ocean belonging to Portugal. And I'm creating the healing holidays here for inviting people like you coming over, giving retreats for for my tribe. And so I would be very happy if we meet here in Madeira and I can show you this beautiful island and have you here as a facilitator for some retreats.
Well, talking about intuition, lately, just in my mind, Portugal. A friend of mine just moved there, Jen Duchesne, and every day she sends a beautiful picture of a Portuguese church or food. And then another friend, Mana, she makes light shades like for Hearst Castle, the rich and famous. And I interviewed her. She made me a beautiful light shade. She moved to a little island in Portugal and looks down at the water. And they say that it's one of the highest quality places to live in the entire world. So I've seen the pictures of where you live, Swanette. Yes, I'll be there tomorrow.
Cool. Come over.
I was invited to the Canary Islands to do sound healing with the whales and dolphins. And this is how it is. It's meant to be. The most beautiful natural woman on the island, my friend, we all went out and about, she says, Jan, I swam with the dolphins weeks ago and they said, she is coming. She will be here in 2 weeks. She says, that's you. And so she needed my resonance to find her voice in that island as an indigenous woman who really didn't have her voice. So the dolphins told her I was coming. The dolphins, of course, are from Sirius, and I do speak their language. That's just a funny little, well, what a joy to just be able to say anything to you. And I trust it falls into the right ears in a comfortable way for all the listeners and viewers. And
yeah, definitely, yes. So if people now are interested and want to come in contact with you, how can they find you? Like on Facebook, your website?
Okay, well, I'm accessible. I'm not, a fancy person with a lot of blocks or, staff. It's me. My website is simply Sound and Light Healing Arts.com. And I'll give that to you so you can write it. But I'll say it again, Sound and Light Healing Arts.com. And the and is A-N-D. And well, I'll give you my email is SOAR, S-O-A-R, Global Vision @gmail.com. And that's how you can reach me. I love doing private voice release. That is a scientific, spiritual way of releasing the old inner traumas to help you get fear out of speaking your truth in the bedroom, in the boardroom. I do a free meditation, and you can learn about that at the website every Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And there's a really nice group there, the regulars and drop-ins. And I have a page with all the previous videos. It's like a topic du jour. And they always laugh because they say, how did you know what we were all working with and worried about? And I said, well, that's a projector. We're empty. You tell me what your story needs to be this week. And I do coaching. I've recently just finished a soulful leadership coaching program with Sahara Fall. And we're going to do a little deeper dive in September on that program. So yeah, I work with other women sometimes. And right now I'm taking a little break. We live in Olympia, Washington on the water. We're going to get the boat going, some more kayaking, a little more marshmallow roasting, and getting some clams, and just enjoying this summer. It's been pretty busy so far.
Wow, this sounds good. I will put all the links in the description so that it is very easy for the listeners to just click on it, and they will be right there with you.
Excellent.
Yeah, so thank you so much for all that you shared, and about telling about your own story and your gifts, and also experiencing a little bit with you. It was so nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swanette. It was just a joy and an honor to be here. I look forward to our next crossover.
Okay, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, spiritualchangemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual Changemakers Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.